What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Jiu Jitsu Junction podcast. My name is Andre, and I'm here with Chase, and this is episode 13 of the podcast. And the main topic that we are going to be talking about today is what rule set you should be using when you are training in mixed level jiu-jitsu grappling. So like white belt to purple belt, blue belt and purple belt, just different belt levels, right? So for me, my knee-jerk reaction is that almost always you just go off of the rule set of the person who is the lowest belt. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. You definitely, where I'm at in my jiu-jitsu journey, I make sure, everyone, I go to their rule set every single time. Like I wouldn't, try to overwhelm them, even down to the way I move and the techniques that I have. So definitely rule set wise, I wouldn't want to, not that I don't know people that do, but I wouldn't want to, start going in leg lock positions with white belts and stuff. No, definitely not. I keep it within their rule set, and, we're in the gym and they might want to compete. So, I want to give them the feel. Now, if straight ankle locks are allowed, I definitely want to do those.
Yeah.
Because I want to give them the feel if they want to compete. I think that may be a little complexity in this question too. Is, are we talking about rule set, kind of for competing? Are we talking about what, specific techniques are allowed? So there might be a.
Yeah, there's a ton. Sorry. Yeah, there's a ton of gray area when it comes to this because there's no unified jiu-jitsu rule set, right? Yeah. There's the IBJJF, which tends to be more restrictive, and then you've got like all kinds of different promotions, right? In fact, when I did some white belt competitions, they allowed wrist locks, and that was not something I expected, and I used it. I wrist locked someone. Anyway,
of course you did.
Yeah, of course I did, right? Gently. Anyway, so
you tried to wrist lock me yesterday.
It didn't work. That's because Chase is better, though.
But you did try to wrist lock me. It made me giggle. Sorry.
Anyway, enough about my inadequacies. So
he went outside of his rule set.
Hey.
Sorry, go ahead.
Wrist locks are allowed at blue.
Are they? Oh, shoot.
I don't know if it is on this sheet we have in front of us, but like, anyway. Anyway, so like, yeah, it's going to differ based off of what actual competition rule set you're doing. And there's also like what's acceptable at your gym, which honestly is probably the most important factor. What is
blue? You are correct. It is allowed at blue and purple.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, don't go crazy with them. You have to know what you're doing.
So he was within his rule set, and I apologize.
Yeah, it didn't matter. I lost anyway. So I actually think that if you're training for a specific competition and you could let your partner know about it, then you can roll within the rule set, especially if you're like peaking for a competition, right? Just do it based off of whatever that competition rule set is. But for the most part, we're thinking about how we are training at our home gym, because that's 95% of our people are just going to train at their home gym because that's what most people do, right? So going based off of the norms for what white belts are allowed to do at your gym, blue belts are allowed to do at your gym, right? That's what I would go with, especially if you have like a very authoritarian. If they have strong rules about what you should and shouldn't do, just go with those, right?
Yeah, and trust me, you're not going to get any type of talking to if you ask, like, hey, can someone kind of tell me what's allowed, what's not allowed, like, and we talk on a lot of the podcasts, talk about just communicating, right? Like, make sure. I mean, there's nothing wrong with me. Like, hey, right before you touch hands and you fist bump, be like, what? Are we doing we don't do leg locks, right? Because I'm a white belt and I don't do leg, like whatever it is, be like, hey, I'm this level. We don't do this stuff correct. And you clear it. Like, make sure you look at them and clear. I still, to this day, sometimes I'll touch one of our guys' hand, but hey, man, no leg locks today. Mm-hmm. He's like, all right, cool. So when I set up grappling competitions, I ask for no leg locks.
Right.
But yeah, make sure you communicate there. That'll help a lot.
Yeah. So, and besides like going based off of the hard and fast rules, like it also depends a ton on the individual in question. There are a ton of people that I don't want them grabbing my heel. Mm-hmm. There are people that will slap on pretty like ballistic wrist locks. And I'm not all about that because that's not what I'm looking to. I do not do ballistic wrist locks. I do not do ballistic wrist locks.
I'm just glad I get good strong wrists.
From what?
My wrist like this today.
But yeah, so how responsible are the people you're grappling with? Like there were white belts that I was happy to explore certain types of grappling. Like I was good with several of them for the whole time, doing pretty much the full rule set of anything. But then there are people that you don't want to do that with.
Yeah.
Right. And if you don't know, then probably keep it lower tier or lower belt technique.
When you mentioned earlier about having an instructor that had the rules, or a school where the rules were pretty strict rules. You might even in that sense, like if you feel like you've gotten comfortable with someone, that might even be something you clear with the instructor. Be like, hey, is it okay if we roll this way?
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's something you should definitely do, especially if you come where there's some rules in place. And I don't think anywhere there's an authority, asking and clearing things usually isn't a bad idea.
Yeah.
Especially in a jiu-jitsu, in a place where it's physical, it's a good idea to just, hey, is it okay if we do this? Is it? Mm-hmm. And the instructor will be like, no, he might have a clear policy. No. And that's okay, right? It's his gym, it's his facility, it's his insurance.
Yeah, it's his insurance, yeah.
And it's his well-being too. He feeds his family with that. I've heard of some schools where they don't allow that at all. They don't allow anything below the waist, and it's solely because he's like, I'm just protecting my members. Like, if you want to learn leg locks, go somewhere. We're not doing them here. We're not learning them. Yeah. And as long as you're upfront and transparent up front, I think that's okay, right? Yeah. Like, you can learn those somewhere else. That's cool.
Yeah, no problem. As like to flesh out a little bit more about like choosing specific training partners, as far as like up leveling which rule set you're doing. I think that, someone who's actually very in control of their body, like they can stop in the middle of a roll, like in the middle of a physical roll, and post and like disengage, you might be able to do more with them, right? And then you've also got like, how skilled are they for their belt level, right? The top end of a white belt or a blue belt is very different from somebody who just walked in 3 months ago.
Yeah, and I would probably go, in general, probably, make buddies with a purple belt, and usually purple belt is where you start getting guys that have the awareness of their body. Towards the end of blue belt is when most guys will have a full awareness of all positions. In purple belts where you start seeing guys, have the ability to really protect, their self, and at least, in what I've seen. And sometimes purple belts where they're crazy because, they compete all the time. Most of the time purple belts where they have enough awareness. So make your buddy with a purple belt. You might still grab a blue belt that don't have the control that they need. Yeah. They think they do, and that's usually the worst.
Yeah, that is the worst. Yes.
Right? They're pretty sure, man, I'm about to be a purple belt. I've got the body control. It's like, whoa, man, hold on 1 second. Just, oh man. Mm-hmm. So that's probably a good rule. Heck, in anything, right? Find you a mentor that's a little bit better than you.
Yeah.
Or in this case, probably a lot better.
Yeah, and that's a good way to go.
Yeah, for sure.
So very individualized. I think it's very individualized. You go with the rules, if there are any hard and fast rules. But something that I think is valuable for people is that they should know what the techniques are and be able to recognize and defend them before they start specializing in them. So, like, for example, like at the end of white belt, is there a reason why they can't know the basics of defending a heel hook? One thing that I learned very...
I think they have to, as far as most curriculum wise. I think survival, you usually have to have a route out, correct? Do you at least drill it some in traditional curriculum, or that doesn't happen till way later?
Man, I don't think that there was any leg lock.
I was out at a place in Arizona, and they done, a week, and what they done is they taught this half of the room, if it was from this belt up, you got taught the leg lock series. From this belt down, you got taught the position and then the escape. So that was a cool class setup.
That is really cool. I don't know
it was a really cool
standard.
class setup. I'm not sure, and obviously I hadn't trained in a standard gym for the most part.
Yeah.
Or at least standard by most. It should be standard everywhere. But.
It should be standard everywhere. Yeah, for sure. So, like, it feels like if you gate these submissions behind belt levels for too long, you're gonna have issues defending it in live settings. So, like, I mean, you don't want to like have some visitor come in and like destroy your knee because you're a brand new blue belt.
Yeah, but I guess that's right. Yeah, because when you go there, you're like, oh, we can do this. Mm-hmm. And somebody is that much better at.
Yeah, like I've defended maybe 20 heel hooks in my so far. Like,
but wouldn't you start the conversation though? Brand new white belt come in, from somewhere else. And you're like, hey, because you're the blue belt, you have to grapple down to there. Like, hey, listen, letting you know we're doing no. Cause we're talking about trying to grapple down, right? That's our general. That was what we both agreed on. Kind of our general etiquette, right? Would be grapple down. Would be so. This new guy comes in like, hey man, how long have you grappled? Oh, you're a white belt. Okay, cool. Well, we'll do straight ankle locks, straight knee bars, but nothing crooked.
Yeah, using your words is obviously the best thing, but not.
I know that's hard, but get better at it.
But yeah, but like we still need to be able to identify things.
I understand.
And
I understand completely.
Like something that was super valuable for me at white belt was having people point out to me where I would get wrist locked. Especially for that competition, right?
Yeah.
Where I would get wrist locked.
Yeah.
You would have had a gnarly wrist lock here. I would have had the ability to drop my hip on it. That's a really valuable help. And I think that if you're the upper belt, that helping out your lower belt friends by pointing out and gently grabbing things, like, okay, I would have had this.
But that would be a relationship, right? You just said with your lower belt friends.
Yeah.
So you would have a relationship built with them a little bit, right?
Ideally, you have lots of them.
Yeah.
That isn't always how it works, though.
Yeah. That would be the only time I would want someone higher belt level than me grabbing me in something I didn't know. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, I'm like, hey, man, what are you doing? I thought we were doing what I'm like, okay, all right, so you're just going to grab things. And then that conversation would have to happen. Because he would look at you and be like, hey.
It's based on trust.
I'm just grabbing things, and then that conversation would have to happen. So I guess, it is what it is. But I think that conversation would have to happen then. But otherwise, you're like, oh, God, that guy killed me the whole time,
Yeah, for sure.
Sorry.
So contextually, this is mostly talking about, like, for the most part, this is training at your home gym.
Yeah. So
you're more likely to build those relationships, right? And for strangers, it's always a good idea to talk to a stranger.
Yeah.
Like you
get a conversation. You can just lay the rules out.
Hey, you good with X?
Oh, it's our gym.
Yeah. Exactly.
If you're a stranger, this is our home gym.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, listen.
And if you're
here
visiting,
we don't do this.
Thing.
Here we don't. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Know that.
Yeah. So in the context of training at your home gym, you're gonna have these relationships, right?
I about grabbed it.
So Yeah, like you should be going to the lower belts level, and I think that if you're trying to maximize the effectiveness of your training partners, you should be introducing them to those ideas.
Maybe we should talk a little about the reason why everybody freaks out and says it shouldn't happen. It's generally because as a white belt, you tend to be a little more extended, a little longer, a little more spazzy, which means you make faster, jerkier movements that might not be in the right direction.
Yep.
And then if you add that with having a leg tangled up between your legs and you spin the wrong direction, or you pull too hard when you should be small, or maybe
you post when you're not supposed to.
You post when you're not supposed to. What I actually have a pretty rough experience with this from. So maybe you can see, I have cauliflower ear. My first
standard.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
At least I thought. My first jiu-jitsu tournament, white belt. Mm-hmm. Okay, I entered white belt and I entered intermediate. Mm-hmm. I was like, hey, intermediate no gi. Like I've wrestled, and I wrestled 1 year in college. I played football, so I didn't wrestle the whole time. I wrestled 1 year in middle school, 4 years in high school, so 5 years, and then 1 year in college, 6 years. If you trained jiu-jitsu for 6 years, what would you be? Maybe a purple belt?
Purple belt most of the time.
Okay. So the referee check-in, he looked at my paper, he looked at me, he said, cauliflower. And I wish I could speak Brazilian guy, and he looked at my ear, pointed, and he was like, cauliflower ear. Intermediate? No. Expert. I was like, oh, no, sir. I said, jiu-jitsu 3 months. Mm-hmm. No, wrestler. You go expert. Mark me over, put me in expert. I wish I could slide the camera back and show you my knee. I was caught in an entanglement, and I hipped up. I was a wrestler. I hipped up into it. Boom. Yeah. And you see the way my knee moves.
Yeah.
That came from a tournament that I signed up. I went white belt in the gi. No, I won white belt in the gi. In no gi, they bumped me to expert. And I went with a guy named Gupson Sa. He's a big name in the Southeast region. Yeah. I think Spartan Academy. Mm-hmm. And he was super, super nice. He looked at me, I looked at him, and he spoke Portuguese to the guy, told the guy what happened, the knee popped, and he backed away, but it popped 6, 7 times, and all I did was hipped up. I had no idea where I was at.
Yeah.
So like that, those are the reasons why we're talking about the rule set stuff. Is it's actually a very, very,
it's a safety driven question.
Huge. Like to the point where me as a professional athlete, when I schedule matches now, I've said it a couple, like I ask for no crooked leg locks. That's nothing that's heel hook oriented, nothing twisting. That's something I ask for, and I've grappled 8, 9 years now.
How often do you get that rule set?
As much as they'll give me the option.
Well, I'm
in control. I'm in control, so I ask. Now, with the way jiu-jitsu is, and because the social media driven leg lock trend, you get guys that won't do that, but it's 100% because they specialize in something from an early time, and when they get away from that, they are not as good.
Yeah.
No question. You take leg locks away from, out of the top 10 guys in the region, probably 5 of them fall off. Yeah. You take leg locks away. Like not even fall off a little, but a lot.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, I thought if I could stay away from leg locks, you don't even have jiu-jitsu anymore.
Yeah. They go from high level black belt to like purple belt.
Gosh, man, it happens so fast. Yeah. Happens fast. I got it multiple times in my career where you get by that and it's like, oh man, you're not even have to defend. You can't even let me set up the next thing because you're not defending the first thing, right? Okay, all right, bye. Mm-hmm. Multiple times. So
yeah, that's why you don't typically wrist lock white belts. You move slower so they can catch up.
That higher level guy might slowly drop his hip and let you feel it. The white belt might accidentally left foot slip off and his hip drop and pop your. It's like that's the reasons. It's safety. It's pure safety. You know, that's why we're talking about, you know, what rule sets, and that's why you hear me over and over communicate. It's something that I'm working on personally in my life too. It's something I need to communicate, especially when stuff that matters, you know. And that's why I want you. It's a serious matter. Like, hey, listen, I don't want to get injured. You don't want to get injured either, right? No.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah, like just there's ways to build awareness that don't require you to execute it on them.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
100%.
hey, don't post on my hip that way. You need to post your hip with the blade here. Yeah. Or else you're going to have someone who's less nice than me just like crush your wrist. Yeah. And that's going to take a long time to fix. Right?
Yeah.
Same thing with, you know, and any of the leg entanglements. You do the wrong thing, right? Like if it's a white belt, I would not hold a heel hook ever on them.
Well, you know what stinks is, you know, you're talking about just holding a heel hook. He didn't have a hold of my foot. All he did, passed it to the other side, so it went inverted. Right. And it was just sitting in his hip.
And then you hipped up.
And I hipped up, and my knee went one way, and my heel went the other way. I just hipped up into him. He didn't have a hold of my foot at all. You know, it's like just the entanglement and me twisting and turning. Pressure went the wrong way. Yeah. I went away. He didn't even, I went that way. I didn't know why I went that way. I was having fun. Before that happened, I had 2.5 minutes going with somebody that was really, really good. Yeah. You know, chasing chokes. Like, it was fun. Being a wrestler, being on top. And then he passed my leg over, and I remember him, he passed it across his belly, and I was like, oh, that's okay. I'm okay with this. Yeah. And I hipped up, and I was like, clack, 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 clack. And I was like,
I am no longer okay with this.
I'm still okay, but that kind of felt weird. And he looked at me, and he was like, not okay. I was like, yeah, you're probably right. Walked off the mat, didn't have no problems until I got home, and it swelled up about this big. Yeah. And now it does.
Yeah, it's pretty weird. Someday that'll be
a jiu-jitsu special.
Part of like one of the videos. Like, look at Chase's knee.
Yeah, it will be.
Like floats around.
And if you do proper mobility, you can still do this. Yeah.
You build up strength and mobility around your injured joint. You could still have full functionality. It's and people say, no, you're never gonna walk on that normal again.
No, it's about structure. Now, if I pull my knee in a different angle, I know we're getting a little veered off now. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. No, for sure. That's just, you know, and that was early in my career. That was, I'm telling you, maybe I wish I knew for sure. I would say without even taking a chance of telling a little bit of a story, within the first 3 months of training. Yeah. He was like, oh no, you have cauliflower. Man, that was a rough one. Yeah. You know, that was a rough one. So.
That's an expensive learning experience you don't want to have anybody have to do, yourself or your training partners, right? Yeah. So that's why we try to keep things simple enough to where our training partner always understands what's going on.
Yeah, for sure.
And if you are doing something to demonstrate a point, speak, slow down.
Please.
Speak, slow down. Like, hey, just letting you know I could do this. Yeah. And then, you know, if you have any kind of basic relationship with them, they'll be happy that you told them.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Like that's, to me, that the first thing I do is the teaching white belts about the fact that they can't post certain ways or they'll get wrist locked. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So anyway, so the best practice is always to default to staying in the lower belts rule set, because that's all they're going to have experience in. And you don't want to go beyond their experience level in training.
I didn't think about this. You as a lower belt, you don't want to grab hold of a higher belt and think you're doing their rule set, and you grab hold of something on them like, oh man, I want to play around with this new rule set. That could be bad.
It's
I would assume and make sure that we are playing it like, you don't want to be the one as a lower belt to be like, hey, brown belt, I'm going to grab your heel. I saw this on YouTube. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Yeah, you don't.
Sorry.
You don't. Yeah, for sure.
Make sure you're not, you know, especially like, you know, if you're the lower belt, don't
stay within what you know.
Yeah, don't go outside of your rule set. Yeah. For sure. Don't go outside your rule set, please. Stay within it.
Yeah, ask after the roll if you're curious.
Yeah, for sure.
You can always do that. And for the most part, people like sharing their knowledge. Yeah. So you're not gonna.
Man, it empowers people.
Yeah, for sure. So stay within, both of you stay within the lower rule set.
Yeah, for sure.
The idea is that you don't want to go beyond someone's ability to know what to do. Or at least if they don't know what to do, they should be in a position where they're not likely to do the wrong thing and hurt themselves.
Perfect.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the basic conclusion here. And there are people who go all over the place, and it depends on the school. But I think that since jiu-jitsu is such an individual sport, you should take a lot of ownership for yourself and for the people you're developing relationships with, your regular training partners, and just stick to where you can train safely, so you can train for a long time and develop together so that you can all get better, right?
Yeah.
So,
I'd like to do obviously we're concluding this one, I like to hit a rule set, and talk about what kind of competition rule sets you should train for, and talk about the different styles. Just want to make a note out.
Yeah, we can do
Might
that.
be some of you guys be interested in. That'd be cool.
Yeah,
there's a bunch of different competition style rule sets.
Sure. Leave a comment below if that's something that you're interested in seeing, and we'll probably cover that relatively soon. I think that would be an interesting discussion.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different cool, rule sets.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks for listening, guys. Like, subscribe, that kind of stuff. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys.
Yeah, we will see you next time.